you're not taking action, you're moving backwards. I mean, you are moving backwards.
Each property should have a sufficient amount of reserves so that there may be a scenario where a distribution doesn't make sense that quarter or that month. And that's because the market changed, or it's a small property and you had a large HVAC order, or whatever it may be. But each property should have sufficient reserves. Now, personally, I have sufficient reserves, and it's not so much that I'm just a doomsdayer. It's because I feel like something is about to happen. It's already begun. Mm-hmm. There's no question. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us. And I don't say that in like an evil way. Yeah. I don't want anybody to fail. If there's anything I've learned over the last 9 years of purchasing, is that sometimes someone, they're at the end of their cycle. It's part of their business plan. They sold it to me what they wanted to sell it for, and they made money. Good for them. But there are some people who are like, I can't handle this anymore. Or I'm getting older, I don't want to deal with it. Now imagine being that 65-year-old couple who's been managing everything yourself, and then all of a sudden you can't even sell for what you thought you would because the market's gonna be crazy. There's certain ways, maybe that's a scenario for a seller finance.
Yeah, absolutely. That's when they can get their price. They can get their price, and they carry the entire note. They give you a solid interest rate, and you work it out amicably. But all of a sudden you find this, you can get into the deal for $0. You're getting the delta on cash flow. You're gonna be paying down the debt. You're gonna be increasing your equity. You're gonna get some of the tax benefits. And you're helping the individual that wants to sell it, because now you're doing the work in what they are trying to get away from.
And some first-time investors, or even people who've been doing it for a long time, when I talk to them, they only think of one thing. How could they ask for this much? I can't meet them there. Or the rates are going up, so I'm really scared, so I'm not going to buy anything. If we would have stopped buying, I'll never forget this. When COVID was starting, nobody knew it was going to go on. And it's hard to even talk about it in hindsight because we know what happened, or some of us, sometimes it's hard to understand even what happened, but regardless, so many people stopped buying. I don't know where our business would be if we would have stopped buying.
Oh, it would have been terrible. I remember talking to some agents a year later that had also done investing. I was like, how's your year been? Yeah, I just kind of didn't do anything because they were just waiting. And I don't necessarily know what they were waiting for, because there was really no action being taken. So typically when you're not taking action, you're moving backwards. I mean, you are moving backwards. Not saying it doesn't make sense to hold and wait and analyze and make sure you're getting into the right project. But I mean, that year we tripled in size because lots of people didn't want to do deals. They were nervous. And this is where it goes back to, if you can provide the best product, there should always be a home for you. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me, unless there's some crazy depression that's unlike anything we've ever seen. I have this theory that there is, at minimum in the worst times, there's always a percent of the population that wants to do the right thing. So you bring in residents. Sure, there were some people that didn't have to pay for rent, didn't have to do those things, but there's a lot of people that just want to do what's right. And if you, as the landlord, as the individual that's buying these properties, continues to service your residents at the highest level, it's going to be reciprocated. That's just how the world works. There are plenty of businesses that flourished during COVID, even some restaurants. So that's funny. There's a restaurant in town, Block 16. They had some of their, I was talking to them, they literally had some of their best quarters ever, because they shifted their business model. But beforehand, they had amazing service and they had an amazing product. And they just changed the way in which they distributed and brought that product to their individuals. So if you can just adapt during those times and you have a solid product, there's always demand.
If you're rigid, that phrase, right? Don't be the hammer looking for the nail. If you're rigid, you're not adaptive, then it's going to end for you.